WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just...
It is the announcement that threatens to shatter the very foundation of women's professional basketball in America. For months, the tension has been building. A slow-burning fire fueled by low wages, high hostility, and a level of disrespect that has baffled the sporting world. But now, that fire has reportedly turned into an inferno. Whispers from the inner circles of the WNBA suggest that the league's biggest star, Caitlin Clark, is preparing to trigger what insiders are calling the nuclear option. Following the catastrophic collapse of the collective bargaining agreement talks, sources indicate that Clark is not just considering, but actively planning, a move to Europe. This is not a drill, and it is not a negotiation bluff. This is a potential death blow to the WNBA's economic model. We are watching a high-stakes game of poker between the old guard of the league and the new face of the sport, and Caitlin Clark just went all in. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is reportedly in a state of panic, fully aware that if the Golden Goose flies across the Atlantic, the massive momentum of the last year could come to a screeching halt. But to understand why this is happening right now, why the talks failed, and why Europe is suddenly the promised land, we have to peel back the layers of a broken system that has been taking advantage of its stars for nearly 3 decades. The story begins with a number that went viral for all the wrong reasons. $76,535. That was the base salary Caitlin Clark signed for on draft night. In any other industry, being the #1 asset in the world would guarantee you generational wealth instantly. In the NBA, the #1 pick signs for over $10 million in their first year. But in the WNBA, the most popular female athlete on the planet was handed a contract that wouldn't even cover the rent for a decent apartment in New York or Los Angeles. At the time, the league office told us to relax. They hid behind the rookie wage scale, a relic of an old agreement designed to keep costs down when the league was struggling to survive. They told fans that the real money would come from endorsements, and that Clark should be grateful for the platform. But the math quickly proved how insulting this logic really was. When Clark arrived, ticket prices didn't just go up, they skyrocketed by 300% to 500% in every arena she visited. Teams that used to curtain off the upper decks were suddenly selling out standing room-only tickets. Merchandise shelves were stripped bare. The Clark effect generated an estimated $50 to $100 million in new revenue for the WNBA ecosystem in a matter of months, and yet, her paycheck remained the same. It was a discrepancy so large it became a national scandal. While the owners were counting their new millions, and the league was bragging about historic growth, the person responsible for that growth was being paid less than a team mascot in the NBA. It was a slap in the face that set the stage for everything that was about to happen. Clark kept her head down and played, but her camp was watching. They were taking notes, and they knew that the upcoming CBA negotiations would be the moment to settle the score. The hope for a solution rested entirely on the new collective bargaining agreement. The WNBA Players Association recently made the bold decision to opt out of the current deal, signaling that they were ready to fight for a completely new economic reality. The players weren't asking for charity. They were asking for a partnership. They demanded a significant share of the revenue, improved pension benefits, better maternal health support, and, most importantly, a salary cap that would allow teams to pay superstars what they are actually worth. This was supposed to be the easy part, with the league signing a historic media rights deal worth $2.2 billion over 11 years with Disney, Amazon, and NBC. The money was finally there. Everyone assumed the owners would open the vault to keep the peace, but reports from the negotiation room paint a much darker picture. Instead of meeting the players halfway, the league allegedly hesitated. Sources suggest the owners wanted to keep salary caps smoothing in place, effectively preventing a massive spike in player pay for several years. They wanted to lock the players into a deal that favored the teams, banking on the idea that the athletes had nowhere else to go. That was a fatal miscalculation. The refusal to offer immediate, substantial revenue sharing was the spark that lit the fuse. For Clark, who has more leverage than perhaps any player in history, this hesitation was the final straw. Why stay in a system that fights tooth and nail to keep you underpaid when there are other options on the table? The breakdown of these talks proved that the WNBA, despite its new popularity, was still operating with a scarcity mindset. They were trying to hoard the wealth rather than share it with the talent that created it. Money is a massive factor, but it isn't the only thing pushing Clark toward the exit door. To understand her mindset, we have to look at the culture of disrespect that defined her rookie year. It started before she even played a professional game, with a controversial decision to leave her off the USA Olympic team. The decision to exclude Clark from the Paris Olympics baffled millions. Here was the most electrifying player in the world, healthy and ready to go, and the selection committee left her at home. The official reason was experience and chemistry. But to the general public, it felt like gatekeeping. It felt like the old guard of women's basketball telling the rookie, "You haven't paid your dues yet." It was a missed opportunity to market the game on a global stage, but more personally, it was a signal to Clark that the establishment wasn't ready to embrace her. Instead of a gold medal, Clark got a month off, but the message was received loud and clear. You are an outsider. This sentiment seemed to bleed onto the WNBA courts as well. Throughout the season, we saw a level of physicality directed at Clark that bordered on dangerous. We all remember the Kennedy Carter hip check, a non-basketball play that sent Clark crashing to the floor while the ball wasn't even in play. We saw hard fouls from veterans that looked less like defense and more like hazing. The media narrative surrounding these incidents was even more toxic. Instead of the league protecting its star, we saw debates about whether she flopped or whether she needed to hit the weight room. We heard legends of the game, players like Cheryl Swoops, making comments that minimized Clark's collegiate records or questioned her impact. The jealousy narrative became the soundtrack of the season. For a young athlete, dealing with that level of hostility from your own peers and the legends you grew up idolizing is mentally exhausting. The WNBA environment, which should have been a celebration of a new era, often felt like a hostile workplace. This brings us to the alternative, Europe. For the casual American fan, the idea of the world's best player going to Turkey or Spain sounds like a step down. But those in the know understand that European women's basketball is a completely different beast. In terms of lifestyle and compensation, the top EuroLeague clubs have been embarrassing the WNBA for decades in Europe. Women's basketball is supported by massive sporting clubs like Fenerbahce in Turkey, or heavy hitters in Spain and Russia. These clubs are often funded by soccer giants or wealthy ownership groups that treat the women's teams as prestige projects. They don't have salary caps in the same restrictive way the WNBA does. If a team wants to pay a player $2 million for a 6-month season, they write the check. But it's not just the money, it's the treatment at the WNBA. Until very recently, players were flying commercial, squeezing into middle seats, and dealing with layovers. In Europe, top imports are treated like royalty. We're talking about private drivers, luxury villas paid for by the team, personal chefs, and a fan culture that is intense but respectful of the talent. There is a long history of WNBA stars realizing this truth. Diana Taurasi, the White Mamba, famously sat out an entire WNBA season in 2015 because her Russian team paid her nearly $1.5 million to rest. They valued her health more than the WNBA valued her play. Think about how damning that is. The greatest player of all time was paid to stay home because her overseas club knew she was too valuable to risk injury in the States for a fraction of the cost. Brittany Griner, Breanna Stewart, Jonquil Jones. Almost every MVP caliber player has spent their off seasons overseas because that is where the real money is. The WNBA has always been the side hustle for the world's elite players. While Europe was the main job, the league has been trying to change this perception. But if Clark leaves, it confirms that nothing has actually changed. The WNBA knows the overseas threat is real, and they have tried to create a domestic solution. Enter Unrivaled, the new 3-on-3 league founded by superstars Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier.